we had set the time up for 10 o'clock on whatever day it was, and he showed up on time, but he showed up in a untucked, unironed golf shirt, half shaven, just really hair in disarray, shorts and flip-flops. And I was honestly taken back a little bit because my first question was, I go, well, you're on time, but you did realize we had an appointment today. Oh yeah, I just like to be casual. And on the inside, I didn't say it on the outside, but on the inside, I'm thinking, if you take care of my business the way that you take care of you, then we don't have anything to talk about.
Welcome to the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I'm dedicated to helping you take control of your life. Together, we'll explore practical tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories to help you overcome obstacles and achieve your goals. Making small changes is possible and can lead to big results. Are you ready? Let's go do this.
Welcome. We are in for another treat today, my friends. I have with me Bill Daley. He has owned a flooring and covering company for 18 years and host of the Fashion Guru podcast. I can't wait to dive into that as well. Bill's passion comes from the opportunity to help people create a visual and functional environment that enhances their lives, whether it is in their home or the clothes that they wear. He also believes that life is too short to wear boring clothes. Bill, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Sue. I'm delighted to be on with you.
Oh, I'm excited that you're here. I would love if you would share a bit about your story and where you are today.
Sure. So since there's kind of two stories, we'll address them as they come. But the first one that started early was my stint in the floor covering industry. And those 38 years doesn't include the early years. It includes at post, or I guess my senior year of high school. So anyway, I was born and raised in Iowa. It was a small town back then. It's gotten a lot bigger now, it's always been a great place to be. I started working very, very early. I was pushing a lawnmower when I was 8 years old. I was selling greeting cards door to door. I think some of my old neighbors still have those greeting cards on the top shelf of their entry closet, I'm quite sure. And when I did that, I was too young to receive income or money for it. And it could either be paid through my mom, or I got, for our listeners that are a little bit older, a service merchandise catalog. So they would give me points, and that's how I would get stuff. And, I got a bike and my first tent and, a lot of different things just from selling these greeting cards, $2 a box. And I don't even want to know what they look like today, but what that did, Sue, was just gave me a taste of entrepreneurship in the very early years, and to realize if I want to do something, I can always do it by myself. And then down the road, you bring people with you. And I had a lot of fun doing it. My friends all thought I was crazy. They wanted to play football in the yard and everything else. And I said, I can, but I've got half a box left. I need to get rid of these. And I would go around, and I think some people bought a couple boxes, in different times just because, they felt good about supporting me. And that'll come up later because that's really an important part. When I was 13 years old, my brother, who's 9 months less 5 days older than I am, we were adopted, in case you're trying to do the math, and he was mowing the lawn for a local carpet store, and he kept complaining to my mom that the bees were too bad, it's too hot, the mower doesn't start, et cetera. And so she loaded me up in her wood paneled station wagon and took me over there and said, Billy, you need to finish this. TJ made a commitment. And so I started mowing. And back in 1979, I was getting $30 to mow that lawn. And I went into the sales manager who was in charge of outside things, and I said to him, I just have one question. He asked me, how did it go? Came out, looked at it, looks really good. And I said, I have one question. How many times can I mow this every week? Because that was a lot of money in 1979. And after working, I'd go to the Steak and Shake next door and have a steak and shake and a milkshake waiting for my mom to come pick me back up. And, that was a lot of fun. And I graduated to the warehouse and, was picking up scraps and sweeping and making cuts and all that kind of stuff, and worked there through my high school years, and went off to the University of Iowa and came back and started back in the floor covering industry. So apparently university was all about learning how to drink and all the things outside of education that you do. But I was delighted to do it. I was a sales manager in a local retail flooring chain, much bigger than I am. But I learned an awful lot there. I learned about managing people. I learned about, managing myself. Nope. I learned about managing things. And many things I've learned I can't control. So I can either get hung up on it or I can move on and take the skills that somebody does have and extrapolate on that. I did well. I've always been a selling manager, so to speak. I own the store now. I still sell all the time. And back in 1994, I was asked by the past owner of my store if I'd like to come in and switch and come join him. And the timing was perfect. I did. And within pretty short order, I was his sales manager, and, we were off to the races and having fun. And then when they wanted to retire in 2007, my partner and I, we've been working in that store where I started mowing the lawn. So we've been working together since 1979, and wow. He handles the installation operations and I oversee it a little bit and, run the store and sell and so forth. But when we bought that in 2000, it was September of 2007. And if anybody remembers what the economy was like, I mortgaged my house. I pushed all my chips into the center of the table and said, I'm all in. This is what I had. We made it happen. Our first half of the fiscal year was a record-breaking time for the store because I was super excited. And then 2008 hit, and I had a gut punch that I didn't put in my business plan. I'll put it that way. My projections were very conservative, and we can do this and knock it out of the park. I wasn't sandbagging, don't get me wrong, but when that economy hit, we went down $1 million overnight, and wow. I was pretty nervous, to say the least, because I already put everything in. I didn't have anything to go back to. So the only thing you can do in those times is just not pay yourself. And that's no fun, of course, either. But I found myself saying this can't last another month for almost 3 years. And, wow. As things started to change over that period of time, there was probably 30% of all the floor covering stores in the United States went bankrupt. The industry changed. For whatever reason, I believe it was just a divine guidance that God allowed us to survive. And we'll get into that a little bit later as well, what I believe really happened. But here we are. I learned how to ski on a black diamond hill, so the bunny hill doesn't bother me at all.
Wow. Okay. That's quite a story. Now I got a ton of questions. Well, let's go with, what are some of the qualities that you possessed that allowed you to persevere through all of those hard seasons that you had, especially for the 3 years where you said this is only going to last one more month, and it was 3 years later?
Yeah, it is a good question. It's not one I like, but it's definitely an important part of the story in that, I think one, bullheadedness. I was very stubborn. I still am very stubborn. I've gotten a little better in that area, but just the idea of failure. I'd put everything into this. I talked to people about it. I probably bragged a little bit about it and so on and so forth. And my parents, were proud of me and all that. And the idea of failing after a year just made me sick to my stomach. Not to mention everything that I had was in the store. And I just couldn't think of going backwards. And I guess that gave me a little bit of the momentum and a little bit of the carrot out in front of me. Like, I've got too much to lose. I've got to make this work. In my case, back in 2008, I was too small to fail. And so I kept pushing through that. And, like I said earlier, those were such scary times because when you're a business owner, you take your business with you 24/7. You just do. It's hard to, anybody that doesn't do that, they're very blessed in that regard. But for me, I did. And I found myself, awake at night, pacing, doing push-ups, whatever I could do to, alleviate the stress. I think normal cortisol is right here. Mine was 10x, but I learned in all those times. And the other time that I learned the most was COVID. I was going through some changes in my staff prior to that and at the end of the 2018, and January 3rd of 2019, just right before COVID went just crazy. I got rid of my last salesperson, and I called my wife that day and I said, honey, the worst thing, that I think could ever happen is happen. I'm all by myself. I had my office manager who's like my right hand, which is awesome, and my partner, but I went to work and that's all I had. And I never closed one day during COVID. And I would do measures and things from 7 to 9 in the morning. I'd work in the store from 9 to 5. I did measures for client appointments on my way home, sometimes till 8, 9 o'clock. And I sat at my dining room table till midnight for 14 months doing paperwork that I didn't have time to do during the day. And I'm so, now that I'm past it, I'm so happy to have gone through that experience, because prior to that I said to myself, I can't do it alone. I've accepted unacceptable behavior only because I'm stuck. I can't change it. And I tell people a lot, it applies to fitness a lot, and I recently went through the 75 Hard program with Andy Frisella, which was awesome. But your body and your system can do just about anything. It's your mind you have to convince. And that's what I learned through that period. And that's what I learned in that.
Your story is threaded with perseverance. What's something that you learned about yourself through perseverance?
Kind of a double layer there, but obviously, I have a strong faith in God, and, prayer happened a lot, I and even on my knees, which I didn't used to do. But, when things get really bad, I mean, what are you going to do? You're not going to die. I do realize that. And up to that point, I knew that God got me through absolutely 100% of everything that was ever thrown at me. I had a perfect record. That wasn't done perfectly, but I had a perfect record. And one of my friends reminded me that you'll get through this too. And he shared a story with me, Sue, that was, what you're doing right now, Bill, is you're standing in front of a boulder that is taller than you, and you can't see to either side. You can't see over it. You're right up against it, so you can't even turn around and look behind you. All you can see is that stone in front of your face, and you're never going to get over it. You have to get around it. And eventually you start to pivot. You make little baby steps and you start to pivot, and eventually you get around it. And the problems are still there, but now you can move forward, and eventually you are able to turn around and you look back, and that boulder looks about that big. Now it's a pebble. When all I could focus on, it was overwhelming. And so, that's the big story of what happened on that. And I just, again, I couldn't fail. It's not like I had a sunglass hut at the mall and I could just throw a blanket over it and walk away.
Right. You had a lot invested into it, and a lot of small business owners and entrepreneurs do that. They throw their heart and their soul into it. You said something before that was a phrase that was curious, that caught my attention. You said you were too small to fail. What does that mean to you?
Well, in the terms of when it was first coined, when all the banks were failing and Enron and everything else, and the government would give them all this money, nobody gave me a nickel. But for me, it's not just closing the doors. Oh, well, the corporation's gone. Everybody's got to go find new jobs. Every single client of my store is a piece of my reputation. It's a piece of the impact that we can make on the community by serving that client. And it's real. It's fresh, it's raw. It's not just customer number 468. And so I was so small in light of things that if I would have failed, it would have been disastrous for me personally, probably physically, emotionally, mentally, all that kind of stuff. And so that's why I make that, size does matter, but it doesn't matter. We're all in here for the same reason. So
I can hear in your voice that you are passionate. You're passionate about what you do. You're passionate about helping people. You're passionate about floor covering and about style, because I've listened to your podcast as well. So I want to talk about your passion for transformation. How do you help people navigate design for themselves? This is more of a technical question, but it has to do with being passionate. How do you help clients navigate design decisions if they come from a place they don't know where to begin? And they're like, yeah, I do want to transform. I hear the passion in his voice. What's something they can do?
Well, I will definitely say in the first 20 years of my career, it was much more difficult than it is today. And, when the internet came around and HGTV and everything else, consumers were bombarded with ideas and oh my gosh, I love that style. Or they'd go to a nice hotel and gosh, I wish our master bedroom would feel just like this. And so they come in with more ideas today than they ever have, but they still don't know what is practical for them. And what I mean by that is they may have traveled to Southern California to a friend's house and they had this gorgeous outdoor kitchen with all these things. And that's all well and good. But here in my community in Iowa, where it's 20 below one day and 110 in the summer next, everything blows up. We don't have that stability here. And so maybe that kitchen looks great in Southern California, but it's not very practical in Davenport, Iowa. So that's part of it. I do what's called a design audit, and I just ask a lot of questions, and the questions reveal to me about the client. What do they want? And not just what they want, meaning they didn't come into my store to buy hardwood, carpet, ceramic tile, luxury vinyl plank, anything like that. They came in for the finished product. It's the same as when I go to a hardware store. If I go in to buy a 1/4-inch drill bit, do I really want a 1/4-inch drill bit? No, I want a 1/4-inch hole. And it's the same process as they come in here. They don't even really care, truth be told, about the warranty. How long is it supposed to last? How often do I have to vacuum? Whatever. How is this going to make my room look? Am I going to feel like I'm in a theater watching TV with my family and have that, short of a reel-to-reel and a bag of popcorn on the wall? It's just they're going to have that same feel. And that goes with everything I sell. And I tell my clients when they come in, because they get really overwhelmed, we've got a 6,000 square foot showroom with all kinds of samples, way more than we need and way more than we ever used to have. But I start by telling them 80% of the showroom, once I find out what they want, let's say they want carpet, I just say 80% of the showroom doesn't even apply to you. So let's get rid of that. Now we have 20%. And in this 20%, only 20% of that applies to you. And so now we've narrowed it down. And just based on what they've told me, Sue, I can take them to 4 or 5 things. Not that they're the only things, but I can't show them everything, nor do I want to. I want to fit with them what I think will help them. And I even get people say, why'd you show me these? Well, because I've done some jobs with these and they look great and customers love them. And Jenny Craig never sold any diet program without any before and after pictures. So I'll show, some after pictures and they love it. We post them on Facebook all the time. But once I get in there, I tell them that my job is not to make your house look like me. My job is to make your house look like you. And that goes the same when we talk about the fashion side. And so this is all about personalization. Everybody's home has its own style, just like everybody's dress has its own style. And the rest is just technical stuff. So that's kind of how I narrow it down. I mean, it's not a one size fits all by any stretch, but I have to listen. If I don't listen, I'm going to miss it. So
yeah, I hear threaded in all of that, asking yourself those why questions. Why do I want that? What do I want out of that? What do I want to feel when I'm there? And also, we could apply that to life too. When you're looking at something, you can narrow your choices down by saying, well, maybe I don't need 80% of what's in front of me. I just need to focus on the 20 and then take that 20 and focus on 20% of that and to get down. So in your carpet analogy story, we can put those small steps into our life in other areas as well. So I'm glad you shared all that.
Oh, good.
Let's talk about your podcast, The Fashion Guru. Now, I had an opportunity to listen to it. It's geared mainly towards guys, but I want to say to anybody listening right now, I took away information from it. So I would say it's not just guy centered.
Yeah.
I walked away with how to level up my fashion too. So talk about your inspiration behind the podcast, where that came from.
Well, it's a great story, and I'll have something later to talk about Patrick and his wife, because I said no before I said yes to that interview, and I'm so glad I said yes. So a lot came out of that. So like many things in life, what is the genesis of whatever we're doing, wherever we're going. It's situational. So in my case, somebody I knew called on me at my store, my flooring store, to say, I want to come talk to you about an advertising platform magazine that I think will be really good for your business. And I'd already done something like that. And so I really wasn't sure, but he was a friend, and, I'd give him 15, 20 minutes to share if I can support him. And we had set the time up for 10 o'clock on whatever day it was. And he showed up on time, but he showed up in a untucked, unironed golf shirt, half shaven, just really hair in disarray, shorts and flip-flops. And I was honestly taken back a little bit, because my first question was, I go, well, you're on time, but you did realize we had an appointment today. Oh yeah, I just like to be casual. And on the inside, I didn't say it on the outside, but on the inside, I'm thinking, if you take care of my business the way that you take care of you, then we don't have anything to talk about. And it just, it was just a no for me. I listened to what he had to say, and that was it. We shook hands, and that was it. What I didn't realize is that it was going to catapult me into this completely different direction. And I said to myself, the bar has been lowered so much that you can step over it. And I had already been building. I've always been a kind of a clothes horse, but nothing like I am today, because it's part of my stuff. But I had gone through a divorce about 8 years ago, and, everything that you have gets reduced down to this little bit. And another best thing that ever happened to me, part of my life. But I started, going to thrift stores and different things like that to find clothes, get them dry cleaned. And they were all really nice stuff. You just have to have the right guy, either lose weight, gain weight, or die, and then you're going to capture some great pieces. And I remember my friends always saying, how can you wear other people's clothes? Well, I'm like, how can you dry your face with a towel that somebody just dried their butt with at the Hyatt? It's no different. It's clean. But, and I started building that way. People started making comments, and I would tell people that story without exposing this gentleman's name. He's a nice guy. He missed the mark for me. And I determined at that point that if I do something to help men step up their game, that if they're in sales, their sales are going to go up. If they're in finance, their client base is going to grow. No matter what they did professionally, it was going to be a great experience. And I just couldn't figure out how to make that happen. And one day somebody came to me and said, well, why don't you start an Instagram page? And I said, well, I'm a Facebook and LinkedIn kind of guy. I'm older. And they said, no, you need to do Instagram. That's where things are. So I don't like to talk about myself. And they said, well, you got to say something about what you do. And so that's where it grew. Bill Daley Fashion Guru was the name of my Instagram page. And I'm like, oh, I feel so stupid. But so I started putting it out there. It was a hard thing for me to learn. I just started doing outfits of the day and posting those things, and things start to grow and grow and grow. And, got 26,000 followers. Now I have no idea how, but that's just how it all works. And I've had so many people reach out to me by direct message and phone calls and different things to just ask me. I had one this morning that asked me, is this what I'm thinking about doing? What's your input? And it's a compliment. And
it is. Yeah, it is. I mean, the small steps alone, as I listen to the story, it's like just one post a day, It wasn't fancy. It wasn't technical. It was just, hey, here's the my fashion, whatever it was, the clothing of the day or whatever you were posting. Yeah. And I think what's also in your story is that those things take time too. When did you start that first Instagram post? Do you remember?
It would have been in February of 2022.
Yeah. And we're in January 2025. So all good things do take time to build up.
They do. And like you said, it's the consistency of, one a day. I may have made more than one post a day, but it was collectively on one outfit or what have you. And lo and behold, when I got to March 15th of last year, I had made a astonishing discovery. I hadn't worn the same outfit in almost 3 years.
Oh my God.
Months. And
That's a lot of clothes.
now here we are, January 25th or 25, and I still haven't worn the same outfit going on 4 years. And people say, oh my gosh, how do you have that much? I mean, my closet's pretty big. I've got it set up like a men's store. So every night I go in and pick out what I'm going to buy or wear. And, I'm ready for the next day. I make some fun of it. But it's not because I have 4 years worth of suits and 4 years worth of sport coats and shirts. I have become very accustomed to picking the right pieces to be able to mix and match however I want. And nobody, if they go through hundreds and hundreds of pictures on my Instagram or Facebook, they're never going to see me in the same outfit because I've tweaked different things. And it's like you could wear a nice pencil skirt in black and change your shoe color 7 days a week, and everybody's going to swear you wore a different outfit. And it's kind of the same with a guy. And I create now 95% of everything I wear, I create. It's all custom from Bill Daley Designs. And it just morphed into something I didn't expect, but that was it. And for the new people out there, I am technologically Amish. I swear to you, I don't have a lot of mad skills in that. I can take a picture. All my pictures are done on an iPhone leaning against a coffee cup or something. And it seems professional. I've been able to blur the background or change the lighting a little bit, but that's about the extent, and then hit post. And here we are today.
Oh, wow. So you also have a clothing company. I
Yeah.
did not know. Wow. I did not know that. That was a byproduct then of what you started.
Yep. It was a byproduct of that guy trying to sell me a magazine.
Wow. Yeah. That. And then the podcast also.
The podcast grew from that. Yes.
Wow. Wow. What's been the most interesting outcome from this experience that you've had?
I think the most interesting outcome for me, Sue, is the things we say we can't do in our mind are just that. They're in our mind. And I have a propensity in some cases to play the real forward, and I can have arguments with myself that haven't even happened yet and actually get pissed about it, but I've learned that I can do hard things. I may not be as fast as the guy who has a team of 10, but I can do it. And the feedback that I get is what I didn't expect. And sometimes it's very humbling. Sometimes I think, well, they can't be serious, with that compliment or whatever. But I think it's because it's not to impress you. It's to impress upon you. When you do something with excellence, you will automatically stand out above the crowd because, again, that bar is so low. And I wouldn't say I'm the best dressed guy in town, but I'm in the top 10. And it's only because it's not super important to a lot of people, but now people expect it. If I showed up anywhere without a pocket square or without, the right bracelet or something in my outfit, people are like, well, what happened? Did you wake up late? It's funny to hear that stuff because they expect it. And so that's kind of what I've learned out of that.
So you talked about mindset. So what do you do when you get that voice in your head that tries to convince you to play small?
That comes up more often than not. Self-talk, we're our worst enemy many times, and sometimes it's the enemy creating the enemy. But that's been an evolution for me. I'll be completely transparent. I'm an alcoholic, recovering, of course, never recovered, but I'll be sober 9 years in March. And what a journey that's been. And in terms of what I found out, I learned more in that experience about myself than I ever did about not drinking. That's only the symptom, but my life is way better because of that. I don't come to every morning now. I wake up, and I usually wake up early and go to bed early. And, it's all different. And it's just been a great experience. But most of all, it's been the life experience. I'm armed with that information about myself. So I know if there's a tiny bit of negativity, and I have negativity, I've got friends that'll prove it, but I can nip that in the bud quickly. Or, I talked to somebody this morning. I said, I can have 100 great things happen today, and 100 things happen today. 97 of them are really great, and 3 of them are bad. And I'll focus on the bad sometimes. I think that's just what we do as humans. But I'm starting to get to the other side where I can my good friend Jessica Regner out in Pennsylvania says, this is how you handle that situation. You say, well, this is interesting. I'm glad this happened because, and then fill in the blank. And that gives me the opportunity to see everything. Even if it's a bad situation, it can be used for good.
Yeah, I was thinking it's like turning the language around and flipping the switch from the negative to the positive. And as you pointed out, everything that seems negative does have something good that can come out of it as well. Like to have that perspective that out of something, regardless of whether you deem it as good or bad, has something good in it for you. And I think this is a great segue to ask you the question of what role does faith play in your life and what you do?
Wow. So faith for me, and I came to have a relationship with Jesus Christ back in 1990. Prior to that, I was agnostic at best, and I was a proponent of arguing with all of the Christians in the Pentecrest at the University of Iowa, and but I had a big but, B-U-T. And when life changed I went to a seminar not too far from my hometown, and the guy was Christian, and his whole topics were wrapped with faith. And I found myself on the edge of my seat taking voracious notes. And I went home. I didn't have a Bible. I went over to my mom's house and said, do you have a Bible? She says, I don't know. There might be. And I dug through boxes literally and cracked open a Bible, trying to find the stories he was talking about. Because what I'm thinking is, man, if these stories can make an impact on me, there's got to be some other good stuff in here. And of course, there's a lot of good stuff in there from cover to cover. But I started reading, and that started my course of faith. And one thing I realized when I hear people say I was really mad at God, or I blamed the bad things that happened on God, because everybody's had bad things happen to them. I've been abused. I've had bad things. I've caused a lot of bad things, but never once did I blame it on God that I can recall. Maybe I did, but I can't recall ever doing that. I know he doesn't cause bad things now. And it's usually not what needs to be changed in the world, but what needs to be changed in me. And when I have an enemy, it makes sense to pray for that person. It's hard to do sometimes. Most of the time, it's hard to do. Pray for somebody who hurt you or led you astray or scammed you or whatever the case may be, but it brings relief to you. Just like forgiveness isn't for the other person, forgiveness is for you. Otherwise, you're swallowing that poison pill, hoping the other person will die. And so faith is everywhere. It's not just one thing. I said, and I think I coined it because I don't think I've ever heard it before, but I said to a friend of mine recently that I find my peace in the friends that I surround myself by, and allow God to talk through them and love me through them and encourage me through them and everything else. And I believe that. Obviously, there's peace in Jesus as well, but he uses the people with skin on them in my real life to make that happen. So very important component for sure.
Yeah, I love that you said God uses those people that are around you to help you. It's like a take on you are a compilation of the 5 closest people that you surround yourself with. And you took that one step farther and just infused a faith perspective in on that. I've never heard that before. You talk about you have a different outfit every day. You've never worn the same thing twice. What's one thing that you thought would be hard about maintaining your sense of style but wasn't? And what's one thing you thought would be easy but wound up being more challenging for you?
The thing that I thought would be hard about maintaining was continuing to come up with new design, continuing to stretch myself and and falling into the trap of doing the same thing over and over again. Or maybe I would get to where I was bored and I would only have 4 or 5 outfits that I'd just rotate around and change my socks. And nothing could be further than the truth from what you just described. And I don't brag about not wearing the same. I say that to prove to people that it's not about what you have. It's about how you use what you have. And everybody started somewhere. That's why I always mention in my story that I started at a thrift store, and I would actually go from one to the other on Saturday mornings, and try to get the pick. And some days I get nothing, and some days it was the mother load, and I would be able to work through that. All that stuff is gone. When my wife and I got married and she moved into my house, you're going to have to get rid of some stuff. And I got rid of 299 pieces of clothing. And I just remember that number clear. I could say 300. It sounds better, but it was 299 pieces that I took back to Goodwill or wherever it came from. And since it's all been resupplied with custom stuff and everything else. But, when I pick out an outfit, there's an outfit like today. I liked what I was wearing. And it's like, I probably won't wear it again, but I'd love to wear it again. And, tomorrow I'll pick out something different because I see things before I put the colors together. If I'm out shopping and I see a tie, for example, I already know what I have. It's all logged in my mind. And I know that tie is going to work with this outfit, and this outfit. Fine. That justifies it. And I get it. So I have never run out of creativity and outfits and all that kind of stuff. It just keeps flowing very natural for me.
Okay. So while you're talking, I'm thinking about this. You've got this big giant closet. You've got all these different clothes that are interchangeable, quote unquote interchangeable. So you walk us through either the evening or the morning. Bill Daley walks into his closet. How do you choose?
Sometimes I'm inspired by something I see on Pinterest or something I see online. I have a lot of friends in all parts of the world that are super great dressers. And, I don't always do it piece for piece, but the general idea could be my inspiration. And then I build on that. First thing I do when I get home, I take off my shoes, I wipe them all down, put shoe trees in, put them back where they go. My shoes are rotated maybe once every week or 2 weeks. So, I don't wear them out, but I do take care of them. And one of my good friends, Joshua Rosario, who has J. Rosario Shoes, who's been on one of my podcasts, he talked about, he's got like 500 pairs of shoes. He's been collecting for a long time. And I want to say something about that and my suits. But if you take care of it, it's going to last forever. And what I wanted to say, if you buy right, you can wear it 30 years from now and it's still in style. I never buy trends ever, because I know that I'm going to have to give it away and it's going to look like yesterday a year from now. And I can put on a suit that I've had for 10 years and it looks 100% current. I can wear what Cary Grant wore decades ago. And that was classic dapper fashion. It's current today. Yes, the shoulders might have been a little more pillowed, or there might have been a little more room in the legs, but the general body is exactly the same. And all I do is tweak it. I may want to a little softer. So you make small adjustments and it's completely different.
Oh, that's fascinating. I got a question for you. You built yourself businesses, great businesses. You got a great podcast. You got now a clothing company. You've been very successful in the flooring business for a long time. So I'm curious on what your definition of success is.
I thought about this one, actually. I told you before the podcast that, I'd listened to your interview with Michael, and after I got done with that podcast, I go, oh my gosh, I can't hold a candle to this guy. He's had, mega success money-wise and all that kind of stuff. And, I'm not a millionaire. I never pretended to be. I do okay. I don't want for much, but my success is not all about money. My success is about impact and contribution. Those two things I can take separately. The impact, anybody can get a job. Doing your job is just that. You don't get paid for your job. You get paid for the value that you bring to the job. And over the course of time, I've put layer upon layer upon layer of knowledge in my industry, relationships with my vendors and my client base and all that kind of stuff. And that's where my success comes from, because unless I just quit doing it, I don't ever have to turn that off. It just keeps perpetuating. It's not quite like an endowment, but it is. People buy from me because of me. They don't buy from me because I'm giving 50% off or free labor or some other stupid promotion that somebody does. I'm all about the relationships. It used to be carpet color. It used to be style. It used to be hardwood thickness and all that. Now it's just, that's all about managing expectations. Mine is about cultivating relationships. And if it's something I can't get, I'll find somebody that can get it for them. I don't care. I just want them to get what they want.
So success is the impact and the contribution, which I have heard threaded through our conversation so far. What would be the top 3 pieces of advice you would give to aspiring entrepreneurs, since you have been on this journey for a long time?
I think the first one would be to be prepared to work harder than you ever thought you were going to, ever in your life. And in some cases, be prepared to work longer than you've ever thought before you get a substantial return on your investment, because that's what it is. I don't just show up. I mean, I work. I'm always working because I'm always aware. If, I come to work in the morning, I go to 2 coffee shops every single day. And I do that because that's where I meet people. And I probably pulled $750,000 worth of business out of the coffee shops that I attend and the relationships that I make. And so each one of those was a half an hour, 45-minute segment of time where I met somebody that maybe 5 years later they say, hey, we're finally ready for some flooring. Our cat's died and, we're ready to redo it. And I just remember the conversation we had, and boom, there it is. And it's just another piece in the funnel. But you got to keep putting stuff in the funnel, and don't expect riches overnight. In some cases, your definition of riches could just be off. Everybody that says they make $2 million a year on TikTok are all lying too. But the thing that I've learned, my riches, I know it seems laborious to keep going back to relationships, but my riches are in the relationships that I've had. Some of my best friends are customers that I had first as customers, and they became best friends. Mm-hmm. Some customers, I just sold a job to a customer of mine. This is the 5th house I've done for them. I remember 5 years ago, her saying to me, Bill, if you sold carpet at Walmart, we would come by at Walmart. It's not about the number. It's about the experience. And it's just as important to me as it is to them. It's a measure of respect when they come in and trust me to do, and they trust me to do what they want. And it's one of my customers is a local university, and I've been working with them for 25 years. I developed a great relationship with all the people that were part of floor covering. Today, they just say, call Bill, tell him we need this and this and this done, whatever he thinks. And I'll go in and do it. I mean, I've done huge 6-figure projects where they didn't even know what they were getting until it was done.
But that's that's about relationship, though. That's about building those relationships and building the trust within that relationship as well. Somebody isn't just going to trust you with a couple $1 million deal to put in carpet that you chose, and all they said, just let Bill do it. That's a testament to your integrity in your business, in what you built, and the fact that it's not the money that's the driver behind what you do. It's the relationships and the impact that you're having on those people. I'm
at that very point right now. Most of my customers that I had long ago, they're in a condo that everything's taken care of, or they've passed, or, whatever the case may be. Now I hope they'll introduce me to younger friends, family, etc., so that we can keep that circle going. One of the things I just wanted to touch on when you were talking about relationships, the generation of today, and there's exceptions for everything. There's some exceptional young people that I go watch TED Talks all the time, and you're 14. Are you kidding me? What planet are you from? It's amazing the knowledge and the wherewithal that people have for that. But there's plenty that their relationship building is 100% online. And I still believe in a handshake and a warm hug and a high five and a back slap. And that's something that they're missing out on. So if they want to be successful, they've really got to learn how to develop relationships and look people in the eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that too. I tend to be even though all of my podcasts are done this way over Zoom, I go to the coffee shop, I still connect with people. It's nice to be able to have that one-on-one and that physical interaction so that you could feel the energy coming off of the person and you can read their body language better. Not that we can't do it in this context, but it's different when you're in person. So I totally agree with the in person, and it is becoming a lost art.
Well, kudos to you, because what your listeners don't know is you came and visited me live in person at my store. And I just so appreciated you doing that.
I enjoyed that as well. We're going to start wrapping up here because I want to be mindful of your time. So I have 3 core questions that I love to ask all of my guests. So let's tackle number 1. Please share a book or resource that has had a significant impact on you.
It's so hard. It's like I've got 400 best friends, right? Outside of the Bible, of course, one of my most recent readings within the last couple of years was The Power of One More by Ed Milet. Absolutely fantastic, great podcast as well. And has such great speakers and so forth, entrepreneurs on that. And I think why I glommed onto that, because as he was explaining the subject matter of his book, it's based on his relationship with his father, and his father was an alcoholic. And so I instantly had that attraction. And what he talks about in the book about that is his dad talked about in his sobriety, can you give me 24 hours?
Yep. One more day.
Let's do one more day and one more day and one more day. And all of a sudden you look back and you're 500 miles from shore and you had no idea how you got there. And what he also talked about is, as I mentioned, contribution is in the program, the 12-step program that we're in, you have to give it away to keep it. Meaning if I've been giving a gift and I've been blessed with so many wonderful gifts, the sobriety has been one of the biggest ones, I have to give that away. That means I have to help other people for fun and for free to get to their next level because somebody did it for me. Mm-hmm. And that still plays in business as well. There's people that I help out even when I can't probably afford to help them out, but I do it. And I joined an international organization called Rotary, which most people know about. And I myself can write a $100 check and make a little impact, but I can gather with 126 other members and we all write a $100 check. Now we can hand an organization $12,600 and real things start to happen. Well, it works that way in life too. Many hands make light work. And that book, I've since, read whatever I can from Ed Milet. I follow his podcast and all that kind of stuff because it's a shot in the arm for whatever I'm doing.
My next question is, what is one question or topic you wish I would have asked about, and how would you have answered that question or expanded on the topic?
I think that I almost tried to answer that ahead of time, and I didn't think I could because I didn't know how the conversation was going to go. So I'll lead it with this. I was adopted at birth. I had a sister who was a year and a half younger than me and a brother who's 9 months less, 5 days older than me. We're all have separate parents, and we were all adopted by Betty and Tom Daley. And I grew up in a upper middle class home. We belonged to the country club. We never got allowance ever. We always had to just pay our dues that way. But, we only got 3 presents at Christmas and we only got 2 pairs of jeans at school time. So, we were kind of hard. We were strapped a little bit, but nonetheless, when I became a smart ass teenager, there were times where I was not the greatest to my mom. My father passed away when I was 13 years old. He drank himself to death. And apparently I must have said, well, that looks like a really good idea. So I'm going to give that a try. True story. But I said, there was times I say, you're not my real mother and all that kind of stuff. And I ended up meeting my birth mother and my 5 younger siblings. And I realized that everything could be different, not good or bad. Just everything could be way different. And I always used to beat my chest, say, I am who I am because of me. No, you are who you are because of circumstance. in most cases. Today I've grown and matured in that, so you could kind of put me anywhere and I'm going to be able to shift to the gear that I'm in, but I couldn't do that when I was a kid. And so that humbled me a little bit. And it was a great experience from the fact that, and I'm still in contact with my family. Several years later, I met my birth father, and I'm one of 6 there too. And it's quite remarkable. And I learned that I need to listen. I need to watch what's around me. I need to take in the good and release the bad, and just try to be the best that I can, because I am so blessed, and I've been given so much, and I've squandered some of it. Now I'm on the saving side of life, but things and money. But that alone was, I'm so glad that I was able to find out. My brother and sister never found out who their parents were. I know a lot about the situations because I took it upon myself to research it. But that was a great experience, and a lot of life lessons and coincidences in that as well.
Thanks for sharing that with us. As we close, what is one small step that someone can do today that's going to help them change their tomorrow?
Well, small steps are the key. Whether the timing is right or not, I found that most of the quick actions that I've taken was not at the best time, but it was at the right time. And I've made plenty of mistakes as well. It's going to happen. But I have a dear friend named Ryan, and he coins a phrase that I have to take actions that I do not believe in until I get results that I cannot deny. Mm-hmm. And that's just, it's time to be quiet. It's time to just do what's been suggested. It's, you can't be the leader of your train all the time. Sometimes you got to be in the caboose, and we have to make time to learn before we do things, but we have to take action every day.
Thank you for sharing that. Bill, how can people find you?
So a couple of different things at the store. My email, my email is Bill Daley @abbeycarpetgallery.com. And, I answer that for everything. So it doesn't matter what you want to talk to me about. My store is davenport.abbeycarpetgallery.com. We have, everything on there if people want to look. If one of your listeners is in a different area, we have 600 Abbey stores across the country. And so I can make introduction to the owner of that store. If you're in Naples, Florida, or Tacoma, Washington, doesn't matter. I'm sure we can find some place so that they can get the same experience that they would get here, hopefully. The hello@thefashionGuruPodcast.com is my podcast address for questions. That's where I have fun, and I've got a landing page there with all the information and whatnot, and have a lot of fun. My newest episode of season 3, episode 1, dropped yesterday, so check it out on Spotify, Amazon, iHeart, and Apple Podcasts.
Well, Bill, thank you so much for the gift of your time. This conversation has been thoroughly delightful. I've enjoyed every moment.
So have I, Sue. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I value your time with me, and I seek to make every moment count. In order to make lasting change in your life, listening is usually not enough. So I want to ask you, what practical steps are you going to put into action today as a result of listening to this podcast? Remember, any step, any action, no matter how small, starts your journey to a big win. And if you're not sure where to get started, reach out to me and let's have a conversation. Until next time, love yourself, then love others. Peace.